Hello everyone, welcome to the Design Sprint Chapter Meetup Switzerland. So we are live from San Diego, California. No, I'm kidding. We are live from Lausanne, Switzerland. It's a bit less cool, but we are live. And this is great. And we have an amazing crowd in here with us today. Can you say hi to the camera? Woohoo! Great. So thank you so much for joining everyone. This is one of the events of the Design Sprint Chapter Meetup. These chapters, they have been created 1 year ago by Google, so in 2019. We are one of the lucky cities to be an official chapter of Design Sprint in the world. And I would like everyone to clap because we have we have 6 new chapters joining. So please, can you clap when I'm gonna announce the name of the new chapters? We are welcoming in the chapter program Barcelona, Chicago, Cordoba. If you are clapping on mute, it doesn't work, you know. Cordoba, Argentina. Thank you. Kansas City, Mexico City, and Stuttgart. Big up, Sabrina. We love you. And today we have a very interesting talk for you because, I thought it would be great to hear his story. So my good friend Paul van der Linden is actually a business consultant who has been in business and innovation like forever, before even the invention of business and of innovation. So no, I'm being mean. So he has been in the game for the last 25 years, and I thought it would be very interesting for you to kind of hear his story. And now he's into design sprints, and I would like you to hear why, what are his reasons, and he learned a lot of things along the way. So please welcome from Servion, Switzerland, Mr. Paul van der Linden.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Steph. Yes, that's. Thanks for the introduction. He's putting the expectations very, very high. But what I will do is indeed go through from basically starting 1996 onwards in why I believe really that design sprint is helping deliver what has been failing over the long period of time.
Paul, we can see your slides.
Okay, fantastic. So as Steph mentioned before, if there's any question or if I'm going too slow, too fast, let me know. Any questions, I'm happy to tell. So what will be the topic? Why I transitioned to design sprints after 25 years in innovation. And it has been a quest not to find a solution like design sprint, but in principle, or design sprint in the end delivered what we were missing along the years. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. So a little background of myself. I'm Dutch since 2001 in Switzerland. Married, have 3 kids, all living in a very small village of Servion, where we actually were the 1000th inhabitant when we registered here, so very small. You see, that's my house. Last week, I started my professional career in the Netherlands in 1986 at Phillips Lightning, but I'm starting my talk a little bit in 1996 because then we started working on the interactive marketing B2B, B2C activities. Later on, Philips Lighting moved the IT departments, moved into Atos Origin, and with all the information that I learned and experience I gained at Philips Lighting, in 2000 I moved to Procter & Gamble under Atos. And worked for a lot of global brands in their transition from TV, print to digital marketing. In 2015, that's a long step, of course. I founded together with Ian Johnson, who is also here in the presentation, the Atos Digital Studio, where we basically collected all the learning over the years into a solution, which I will tell you a little bit more about a little bit later. In 2018, I started being independent consultant here in Switzerland with, you see here my website. And as Steph just mentioned, 1 year ago, I started working with Steph and became a fellow of the Design Sprint Ltd.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that it's great to see like your journey, and you have been basically in innovation like all the time. You know, it's not like you held one position in innovation in the last 25 years. You literally, it was a journey, and you have seen it all, right?
Yeah, definitely. When I started working at Philips Lighting in '86, I started working in IT, which was still quite new. But 2 years later, I literally carried in the first PC. And it was really a PC, a standalone one. And 2 years later, we started networking, and so always been on top of technology and new introductions and how to use this new technology to make lives better. So let's jump into what we will be talking about. Basically, the challenges that we came along in the innovative marketing development. What we try to do to deal with these, or how to deal with these challenges, and then later on how that, in my opinion, fits very, very well in Design Sprint. And in my opinion, it helps also call it selling Design Sprint, because Design Sprint for me is not just, okay, it's a methodology developed 5 years ago, just out of luck. No, it is really built on problems that we have been experiencing in the years before.
You think, just one question about
Sure.
the way innovation was back then, and do you feel like you had the same like you had enough of budget, or you had enough of time to work on projects, or you had to go fast like it is today? To compare that time and now.
Yeah. If I'm talking, and I will go in just in 2 seconds into your question. At Philips Lighting, money was really no barrier. There was money. There was simply money. I recall that's basically the same period that all the ERP systems were implemented. And the budget for just looking at the implementation of SAP was over 50 million just at Philips Lighting, and that was just the budget. And we had 500-600 external consultants all celebrating each other's birthday, because with 500 you have every day 2 people having their birthday. So they were always eating cake and doing SAP implementation. So it was money was not a problem, but also time was not a problem, because if it would take 3 months or 6 months, there was nothing to compare it with. So it was completely new.
It makes sense actually, because back then, just to build like a website, an HTML page, it was taking weeks or months.
Definitely. Just going back, because I need to be also respecting time, of course, because there are some slides, if you don't mind, Steph.
Sorry.
No. It's very good to ask as many questions as I mentioned before. But just quick reminder of the 5 steps of design sprint, because I think it's important to know. So we have the map, we have the sketch, decide, prototype, test. So the map is really understanding the current. The sketch is finding solutions. Decide is, okay, we are all joining, and we say together, okay, this is the best. Here we are going after. We prototype it, and then we test, and we have immediate results. So what we are talking about now in 5 days, or we're doing in 5 days, is really something that is 8 months at least, or a year in that time. And everybody was talking in that time, an internet year is 3 normal years. So you can imagine what 8 months meant. That is then 2.5 years normal time. So it was a little bit crazy. But let's go back to where it all started. It started for me, and for me that was basically my life changer. When John Wybrow, the CEO of Phillips Lightning, said, "I want to be on the internet. I want to be the best." And I want to earn prizes, so just do it. And he asked me to basically lead that whole activity. And in that time, the internet was technology. You had some nerds knowing some HTML and making horrible websites with horrible colors and links and etc. And then if you, for example, look at 1996, this is it. This was basically what we had to beat. It was not too difficult, but
I'm not actually agreeing with that, because I remember myself the website of Apple, and we were just blown away because they had images, and that was probably the first website with images.
I know, but this side of Amazon or Apple, as you mentioned, that might have taken 4 or 5 months to build, where now every 13-year-old with Wix builds a complete interactive website in a few seconds. But that's basically that was the time. So there was no constraints or whatever. But Philips knew that they needed to do something different, and one of the learnings out of the past was already from the early 80s, where they, as I mentioned, they were the inventors of the CD player, and they came out with this Marantz model, one of the Philips brands, because they thought, okay, this is technology, and technology is men. And men, they want to have all kinds of little buttons to really change all the sound effects and whatever that you could now do on a CD player. So they tried to sell that, and basically nobody sold it, because in reality it was the women that were operating the CD players, because they were at home and they wanted to have just a on-off play repeat. So only 3 buttons. So they completely missed. The boat by not doing consumer research, and that learning, of course, was one of the things that were asked when I started. Make sure that you include all functions at the beginning of the journey. So we had somebody from business, we had somebody from marketing, and we had somebody from technology in the team, making sure that we were not forgetting. And I think that was one of the key learning that I took from that. Make sure that you, at the start, involve the right people so that you are not in the end safe on, but we didn't think about that. If you do that, you have always a good start. My next stop, and that was Procter & Gamble, because Procter & Gamble had heard what we were doing at Philips, and they were in this transition, as I mentioned before, this transition from TV print to online, and they needed help in doing that because their creative agencies were not able to do that. So we were involved, and what I learned at P&G, and P&G basically are the inventors of the how might we, although some people say, well, although some people say in 1996 already the how might we question has been mentioned in documents, but Min Basadur, one of the consultants working for P&G, said basically what we are going to do is any challenge that we have, we are going to make it and how might we, because how might we means basically that we are looking for solutions. It invites us to look for solutions instead of looking for why we are not going to do it. And
if you're not very familiar with the how might we, it's part of the design sprint methodology. So when you discover design sprint, it's an activity on day one of the sprint, and we use tickets for that. And yeah, it was invented.
Exactly. I'm assuming, and then that maybe is wrong, but I'm assuming that most people or all people know about design sprint. If not, we might be a little bit better. Maybe you can ask.
This is interesting. Maybe can you just write in the chat if you know already about design sprint in general, or do you want a very quick explanation from Paul?
Well, if it's design sprint, I'll let you do that. You're the master.
Okay, so far people seem to know. Well, that's why they came to the design sprint meetup.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so but this was really for me at that time, because keep in mind, design sprint didn't exist. Design thinking didn't exist, or at least it was not really used by people to do stuff. But really framing your problem correctly created solutions that were long term. So one of the I think the largest claim to fame we have, and Ian can confirm that, is the Pampers.com community, where basically at this moment 95% of pregnant women and young mothers are known by them. So everybody is somewhere connected to that Pampers.com program via offline and online activities. And basically that is also what our how might we, how can we be this go-to place for pregnant women and new moms and be relevant? And the key elements again that helped doing something good, because doing something smart, let me say it like that, because we knew why we were building it, and with, for example, this community platform, every other initiative needed to fit the other questions, like how can we collect consumer data? If we couldn't collect consumer data, the initiative would even not run, because then it didn't add to the overall program. And that was really helpful in decreasing discussions.
Paul, can I ask a question about like when you were running How Might We sessions at Procter & Gamble? Was it like already called a workshop? It was something that was feeling a bit special, or it was just a normal way of working for you?
It was not even like deliberately mentioned as an how might we, but it was it was just purely the nature of it, that it needs to fulfill a challenge. And people, and then in that day it was us and the creative agencies and the brand teams coming up with ideas on the challenge that we brought up. So we were not at the end having little yellow papers with how might we. But
okay, so it wasn't written HMW.
No, definitely not. And there were also no how might we working sessions, but it was basically part of the DNA to make everything a challenge or a solution driven problem statement.
If that makes sense. I was secretly hoping that you will come with like a super old sticky, like from 20 years ago.
No, because also the how might we it was although invented by P&G, it was not on all levels used. We made so many mistakes. We had so many projects that failed because there was nothing behind it. Okay, so another important activity that we started to do is setting long-term goals, because we did this little initiative. So, for example, I mentioned in the beginning the 60,000 German women that gave their mobile numbers to me and Ian for a happy every other day and happy message. And people were saying, that's fantastic. And then one of the directors of P&G came to us and says, really cool. But now I'm going to challenge you. 60,000 in Germany, that's nothing. Next time I want 600,000. So they were immediately not accepting, okay, it's nice success, but if you can do it for 60,000, can you also do it for 600,000, or can you do it for 6 million? Or setting this longer term goals, and with these longer term goals, they also and that was quite interesting at that time. They put an amount of money to every consumer they could collect. So, for example, if you would do an initiative and the goal of the initiative was to collect new consumers, then they said every consumer has a value of $2.50, for example. We want to have 50,000. So your budget for the project is 150,000. And or if I did the calculation right, or 125,000. So that was then the budget, because they calculated immediately, okay, what it is, and what would then the value be. And that was all in this long-term plan to collect as many consumers as possible in this whole organization.
Do you think it's still done the same? Like they are deciding on budgets depending on the ambitions they have, or they are more like, deciding on the budget because that's what they have and they have yearly the same budget?
No, because in 2006, the world changed dramatically.
Again.
And we didn't have any more P&G getting the consumers, but we had social networks coming. And the social networks really, really changed the complete way of doing this kind of business. So no, it's no longer that, but it's now more on how can we link to influencers, how can we create relevant content that influencers can use to support our brand. Because the consumers nowadays are not stupid anymore. They go and ask for advice to their friends, to the ones with 5 million followers on Insta, etc. So the game changed completely. with all that said, and we're still in the time of before Facebook, etc. We had all of that, but we still had these long development cycles, the waterfall approaches. That okay, we had everything defined, and then the development of the websites were done. Where a part were the graphical assets were coming from the creative agencies. We have the technical agencies in India. And in other countries, we had a hosting party in the US, and everybody had something to do. So the development cycles were way too long. Mm-hmm. Many parties were not included still. So in the end, what was built was technically not possible to host. We missed opportunities because of the development times being too long. If, for example, the meme, or if I'm saying that correctly, with this guy with his hand shoes in a Bernie Sanders, we would not be able. We would not be able to do anything about that because the development would not allow it. Mm-hmm. We actually didn't have any data. We had no feedback or less feedback from end consumers. That came really like 3-4 months later after something was launched. And actually we were not anticipating fast enough on the technological development. So we tried to build some kind of structure of a methodology where we have the business objective. So what do we want to achieve? We designed it, we built it, we run it, and then we started measuring it. And then we had the Google Analytics, and we had Nielsen data, and we had from other sources some data. And then with the analysis that we did, we were checking whether the business objectives were met. And in most of the cases, and therefore this is not a circle, we started again, creating business objectives, doing design, doing build, doing run, doing measure, and doing analysis. But at least there was a methodology created that followed a structure. And in these structures, we were able to put also new elements that helped us speed up the whole activity.
Was it something that was like with some kind of regularity, like meaning the design phase, was it always the same number of weeks or days?
No. That could be from months to weeks to never days. Mm-hmm. Because you had so many parties involved in this that and I recall that we did a design for Gillette, mm-hmm. Where we wanted to personalize the razor, and the creative agency came with ideas and how to do it, and nobody had a clue. And then Ian, who is now, I see him watching, he was sitting next to his computer while everybody was discussing, and he created the prototype of how that could work in 3D, and he presented that to the creative agency during the meeting and saying, hey, is this something like that? And then suddenly everybody was looking like, oh, how is that possible? We discussed something, we see it work, and that basically was, I think, and that's years later, but that was something that helped us doing things differently.
Paul, there is a question from Duncan.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, just wondering, how long did you typically run it for in order to get enough data to know to create a systemic change at P&G?
It depends a little bit on the initiative, but for example, when we did a major upgrade of the Pampers.com, we at that time we called it Village, and the analysis that we at that moment did, it was really looking at the target audiences, and that's the time that we already applied design thinking principles. And we went to Poland to see how, for example, a single mom would decide on buying, for example, Pampers or another brand, and we went to that country and then doing that, and that could take really months for having basically an overview of for whom are we building this. So is that answering your question, or?
Well, it's not a question correctly. I guess I'll have one last go, I promise, and then I'll. Yeah. So P&G is incredibly data driven. They've got data banks of data, more data than we could ever possibly imagine about the effectiveness of TV advertising, because they're the ones who created the industry. So they have existing prototypes that when they come up with a new TV advert, they kind of know this is going to work or this isn't going to work. And then they do testing and blah, 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 right?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to get a feel for is what is the data that they need based on what sample size to be able to get an idea for, this thing hunts, it works, we're ready to put the money and go live on it. Because I can't imagine they were flicking the switch and going live with the early prototypes, right? It's too high risk for them.
No. Because we're still talking 2001 when basically we started doing this, and it was new, and it was really starting to collect all that data that they have now. And I really recall that with Pampers.com, but also with beinggirl.com, which was another community that we built, that we were really starting from zero, collecting data. And then CMK, their internal organization that you might know, were really using this data to analyze the online behavior. So really we started basically from ground zero to what it is now, and so all the initiatives were good to collect this data. Yeah,
I see that Jan wants to help you. He's writing things in the chat. Maybe Jan, you want
definitely
to add something?
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to say that, as Paul was saying, there wasn't any data to start with, and Paul's talked about the waterfall approach, and really there was maybe in some cases years of work being done by teams beforehand, and they were trying to, they maybe had focus groups, they were trying to get focus groups, I'm sounding old now already, but they had focus groups instead of actually iterating on prototypes. They would have focus groups where they would test ideas and then feed that back into the brand managers, who would then make decisions based on the budget that they had. And some ideas would fall by the wayside, some would survive. And those are the ones that eventually came to us for production. So we could work on something for potentially even years for it just to be, okay, we've killed it, it's gone. Because the data they couldn't take it forward.
This is very interesting. Like, how many of these loops, did you have a maximum number of loops you could afford on one project before killing it, or, changing the course, or not really?
In the beginning, there was nothing like a maximum number of iterations or in circles or whatever, because as said, the Pampers.com base platform was there. Initiatives could fail, initiatives could go away, but yeah, it was the trial and error. What is successful and what is not successful. So, as I said, we had a methodology, and that helped us at least bring structure in the way we were working. And then I'm now skipping a couple of years. We were really going after the user experience design, one of the actually this is Ian's nice image on the right side.
Yeah, so Paul, we need to know what this is. Like, it looks like spacey.
No. That's just a photo. That's a photo I took in Shanghai. But because we're talking about a user experience, and it was a user experience environment for kids. This is just an illustrative image that I used. But what is important is what is underneath the user experience design. So we created sort of our own method based upon all the information that came out on design thinking, where we had this discover, understand, act, evaluate, and iterate, and already starting using the personas, creating ideas together, starting to make little prototypes, and getting feedback still internal, and then evaluate these results or test it with some consumers, and then build it. But
I know this.
Still, thanks to Jake, we have this fantastic the classical issues. We still had we knew what we were going to do. We knew why we were going to do it, but we still had this launch always being moved forward because of the build taking too long, because we were still using the waterfall approach. And what also was quite scary, a lot of initiatives were date driven. So for example, there were Christmas initiatives, and we tried a couple of times to move Christmas to another date than the 25th of December, but we didn't get any permission of doing that. So sometimes basically the quality was simply not good enough, because the dates didn't change, and the build was taking too long because of the waterfall approach. And then we made a dramatic change, going from waterfall to agile, meaning that we had many contact points while developing. There were the short phases. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we learned, by the way, from Google as well, that they said, well, we do only projects of 3 months, and if not successful within 3 months, we basically kill it, and we are not going to restart it so that it drags on to a year. If you cannot do it in 3 months, we kill it.
So I'm just having a question about, so you were at P&G at the time, and you said we transitioned from waterfall to agile, we came with these rules. You mentioned that example that came from Google, like the inspiration at least, but maybe when you look back, where was this inspiration coming? Like, was it coming from inside P&G, or were you looking what other companies were doing? Were you hiring consultants? Like, you see?
No, actually, everything came from us and P&G ourselves. So one of the activities that P&G and Google and some other big companies did, that they had their top management go for 1 month to the other company. So we had people working in our projects, a VP that was going 1 month to Google, and basically was a VP at Google, and learned how they operated and worked. And then the Google guy came to P&G, and so they exchanged information, and that's how we came to learn from the approaches that other companies were doing.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Actually, there are a lot of people who are bugged that, Google even shared about the design sprint, because it seems like it's a valuable tool. And they're like, but why do they even, share about it, even to their competitors, right? That's kind of interesting. I guess it was the same back then.
Yeah, but this waterfall really helped us to make sure that what we delivered and how we delivered it was good enough. And sometimes we basically said, okay, we are not able, because at Valentine's Day, for example, to do this, well, we had a good to go product, because we could basically intervene during the development of the whole building and working out the design activity.
Cool.
So again, we had this problem of user feedback. So as I mentioned before, we used Google Analytics, Nielsen, user test groups, focus groups, research groups, etc., etc. And it all came after the fact, or what we have seen, that we had focus groups with for the Being Girl brand community, where we had in London I invited 5 teenage girls that were on cost of P&G, were treated fantastically well with lunch and etc. And then they needed to look at how we built the Being Girl website. And these girls said with everything, this is fantastic. This is great. Yeah, no, I love it. No, I'm going to use it. this is fantastic. So the user feedback was so biased and basically used or only 5 people were interviewed, that it failed to work.
Like now that you know that, for example, the way we do it with Design Sprint, what were the difference if you have to compare what we are doing now versus what you were doing back then? What was the main issue?
The main issue is that we didn't do any upfront work. And if I go to the next slide, Steph, as I mentioned, 2015, we started the digital studio together with Ian. And actually, we took everything we learned over the years and starting prototyping to support sales. What that meant is that we could talk about how good we were and we could talk about what we could do, but if we showed what we could do and people could have that in their hands, then they immediately could say, yeah, that is something for us. Because in the past, sales were making these fantastic PowerPoints and other stuff. And they came to the CEO of a company and he said, yeah, we are able to do that. We might be, but show me then where you did it. Sorry, but we can do it. And what we said, okay, we need to change that. We are going to bring prototypes to the table and show that we really can do it. And then have the discussions with around the prototypes. And that helped really drive sales enormously. For example, the sirens in Switzerland that everybody knows, we created a fantastic app where we could alert immediately the blue light community via an iPad when an officer was at site at for example a train that exploded and gas was released from that wagon, for example. We had built that as a prototype that they could immediately inform and alert the people in the environment, and it helps so much with the discussion to really sell this kind of functionality. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we worked at the digital studio was the 100 minds concept, and basically that was, if you are having a huge problem in your company, and it's not just 1 or 2 consultants that are going for 5 months trying to find a solution for that. What if you bring your top 100 consultants or your experts to the same place and then try to solve that issue and generate ideas and with those ideas build a prototype and call it the hackathon kind of approach, and then come with solutions. So that is already going close, mm-hmm. of course, to what Design Sprint is also offering.
This is interesting, Paul. I'm getting a lot the question like, what's the difference between a hackathon and a Design Sprint in your mind?
Okay, hackathon for me, it is more a call it. You have a solution. You have some technical guys that built in 2 days a prototype that works, but it it is not going to all the, it's not addressing all the functions and all the needs that, for example, in a design sprint, you have experts from everywhere focusing on a specific solution. The prototype is not something that is working, but it's a fake idea that you then going to test and develop later with all the learning that you get. And the hackathon for me is in many cases also used by big companies to select the best developers and to select the best nerds.
It's kind of a trick to hire. That's true. You know what I like to say is, like, I see hackathons, they are like a bazooka. You have a lot of people ready to work for you. You give them, kind of a challenge, and you shoot and you hope to get something valuable. While the design sprint is more a sniper. It's like, it goes deeper and it's less people. It can be secret, while hackathons are like big demonstration of innovation.
Yeah. Although I'm not against hackathons, because I think hackathons are very good, and we in Switzerland, and you and I, we participated in this versus virus hackathon. But this was, let's say, not a classical hackathon where we needed to develop or code stuff, but we needed to generate ideas. And then after that, the best ideas would be worked at. Mm-hmm. So for me, from a business point of view, I think that hackathons, in the sense of the 100 minds, work very well, because you have multiple groups trying to solve a problem, but it's not that they are trying to code something so that I have an application ready and now we can do it. No, they have a concept ready, and the concept then needs to be worked out. That would, for me, be the difference between a hackathon and the design sprint, and, as you said, the bazooka versus the sniper. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Great. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. I know it's almost 1 hour, or I'm going very, very, let me go quickly fast. So what you saw, I had some learnings throughout the activities, the road trip. So the involvement of all the experts from the start, setting your long-term goals, use a methodology, a recipe, as Jake nicely said that, a structure. Incorporate user feedback as fast as possible to avoid rework and get the acceptance, and prototype to get immediate feedback. These are, I think, the key elements that we were looking for in the last 20 years. And if you look at this is actually, the design sprint is the royal flush of all this learning and then bring that together. So that's what I would like to share, that I really believe that this focused approach, having the prototype, having the immediate feedback, but having multiple people creatively work on a solution of a problem that has been really qualified up front. So you're not going into a design sprint like, okay, let's first design sprint on the topic. No, you have a topic, you bring the experts, you think together, you come up with ideas, and bring that to a successful end. Is really why I really love the approach of design sprint.
Great. Is there any question for Paul? I have one question. It's with all these years, is there anything that you have learned that is not in the design sprint, but you think it would be a nice addition to the design sprint?
Well, actually, it's the follow-up. So, and I know, and this is not something that we did before, but the follow-up after design sprint, and that's why I think design thinking in many cases is a little bit less successful because a lot of companies feel it's fluffy, it's not tangible. And with design sprint, you really have something tangible at the end. But how do you act if after 1 week you come very enthusiastic out of this session, everybody is energized, and then the weekend and people still feel okay, and then Monday, Tuesday, not heard anything, back Thursday, okay, back to normal. So that's the follow-up process, the quarter as you have defined it, should be, in my opinion, should be better defined.
Mm-hmm. And about that, did you have some specific, like at P&G, for example, specific methodologies on how to follow up on a project, or not really?
The follow-up on a project was basically doing the measures and analyze it and see whether you met your business objectives. And the one of the largest, of course, is I lost the word, but conversion. So everything was measured in conversion and in CSAT and that kind of stuff, and that came really after months and months.
Great. Jan, maybe you want to ask or speak?
Well, I think it's more just of a general comment. I think when we were getting into design sprints, and it's mostly the case now, it's very heavily tied to product design. And I would really love to see how we might use it for other things like designing services, you know. And I mean, I know prototyping services can be difficult, but also it's just such an interesting framework. It would be good to see how it could be used for other problems as well, beyond the product.
So maybe Paul wants to add something, but we are using the sprint not only for product design, and I think that's something that's very interesting. It's not really in the book. It looks like it's for products. You can use the sprint for all kinds of things, like we did sprints for architecture, for services, for strategy. So there are a lot of flavors and a lot of things you can do.
When we did this hackathon, the good thing was we had like 3,000 people all participating in various groups, and we had exactly 48 hours to come up with a solution. And what we had the luck that we had 3 people or 4 people in the group that knew about design sprint. So basically we took the principles of design sprint to immediately nail down what is the problem that we want to tackle, what is the current situation, how might we create the question correctly, come up with everybody with their own solutions, and immediately decide and work on it. And I think because of that approach, we were really on time. In 48 hours, we completed a fantastic first prize winning idea in the hackathon. But we also had time even to shoot videos and make a complete marketing of our solution.
Paul, I think we have one last question.
Sure.
François?
Sorry, the mute question always.
That one.
So yeah, Paul, I will have a question. Do you use only design sprint? And if using other methodology, what would be the percentage of design sprint use?
Design sprint is actually when the challenge is, of course, not too broad, because in some cases, for example, when I mentioned the National Olympic Committee in the Netherlands, when they want to have a strategy on big data and sport intelligence, that's way too broad to use design sprint. So there we used different methodologies with that were more going in the direction of the design thinking, where we had all these target audience interviews, and things like that. And then so that was a much longer activity than that could not have fit into a design sprint. So design sprint is not the only methodology. If for example you have a small problem to use, there are workshops, the lightning decision jams, which you can run in 4 hours, where basically you immediately define what the problem is and is it relevant enough to solve it immediately and assign it to somebody. So there are multiple ways of dealing, and it's really depending on what the challenges that you need to solve.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all these insights, Paul. That was super duper interesting. If we are a fan of your journey and we want to know more, where can we find you online?
Online, of course, I have my own website, Paul van Linden Consulting, and I think that Agile is will put that in the chat. And you can follow me, of course, on Insta for my photography, but that's a personal thing.
You didn't say, but all the photos in the presentation were yours, right? With all
they were all mine. Yeah.
Nice, great. Great. Thank you so much for your time, Paul. That was great to have you on the show. And if you guys have stories to share about design sprint, case studies, you are always welcome to join the show on the next time. We will try to have this kind of show every 2 months or so. Thank you everyone for joining. That was great to have you. And I'm going to stop the broadcast now. If you want to stay, exchange a couple of words, you're of course welcome to do it. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Paul. Well done.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Paul.